Hello again, I'm Travis from Riverstone Outfitters. You may have watched our past 3 videos, and I'd really appreciate it if you keep watching. I'm trying to be as instructional and as calm and help you guys learn as much as you can to go out there and land the lunkers. My last 2 videos have been going into my personal fly box in order to see what I use to catch fish in New Mexico at least. And I let you into my personal tackle box and showed you all my secret flies and my secret lures and everything that I use. So today I'm going to go over different stuff like reels and your rods and stuff that you need. Hopefully I'm helping out newer people, beginners, nobody who's ever fished before, learn how to fish. Anybody else who wants any casting instructions, anything like that, send me an email and I'll post a video on it as soon as I can get to it. But jumping into what we're doing today, I want to show you some basic stuff. Lures I use, some other techniques, I want to show you some miscellaneous gear that I use, and let's just jump into it. So first thing I want to show you is a trot line. Now anybody who's an avid fisherman hates these things. And I, for one, I'm okay with it. I'm impartial to them. What you do with these is you drive it into the ground. I haven't sharpened this one yet, but you drive it into the ground. You take these giant weights that you have, and each one is connected to a hook. And there's some pretty gnarly, pretty big hooks. I mean, if you can get a look at that, that's a big hook. That's like catching a shark. But that means you're going to catch bigger fish. And what you do is, traditionally, you take and you run these out into the water. You let them sit. You put a big chunk of bait on it, and you leave it overnight. And then you check it at least once a day. And then you bring it in and you catch fish. In New Mexico we have a limit, you can only have 25 hooks. I don't like doing that. I only put 2 on because I like to give the fish a fair shot. It's just like with hunting, I love to use a bow, that way the animal has a fair shot. 25 hooks, that's just not okay. I use 2 hooks and that would be your trot line. If you're catfishing or checking your trot line in the night, always carry a nice bright flashlight. I use these Black & Decker torches. I love them. They're very bright. They do really good. And they have the 2 settings. I like the Black & Decker flashlights. They do really good for you. Heading into fly fishing a little bit more now, back into my home turf. I'm sure all of you can tell I love to fly fish more than anything else. But getting into it, what I have here is I have a Crystal River travel kit, and I bought this a year ago or so, and I've caught more fish on it than I care to remember. But all I use this for is going on vacation. I recommend getting a kit like this and taking it with you everywhere. I take mine to school with me even though there's not a chance I can catch fish. Because I'd rather have it and not be able to use it than somehow get the opportunity to use it and not have it. So, open it up. All of my fly lines, it doesn't matter what I'm fishing for, what lure I'm using. A lot of people disagree with me, but I always put a fly line on. And I like using this Crystal River floating fly line. Just like before, I promise I'm not trying to sell you guys any brands or anything. I don't have any sponsors. Hopefully I will in the near future, but I'm just showing you what I use and what works for me. So I like using a floating line. Most of the lines come with casting instructions on the back, but I'll be posting actual videos. I feel like a visual learner will learn a lot better from watching rather than reading, okay, the ABCs of fly casting. But this is good stuff. I use floating fly line. Crystal River is great. Now, getting into the rod, what this is a 9-foot 8-piece fly rod, or 9-piece fly rod. So this is a travel kit. I love this travel kit. It goes everywhere with me. I've caught fish in Montana, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, everything on this fly rod. Use this fly rod, you'll catch fish. I strongly recommend it always. So put that back in the bin. And now I'm going to get into reels for you. Now, being a fly fisher, I've been fly fishing for a while, so I'm going to show you 3 different reels. That way you can understand. If you're first time fly fishing, you've never done it before, go out with somebody that can help teach you how to fly fish. I really recommend that. But if you're going out by yourself, don't use anything fancy. Go invest in one of these. This is a Crystal River. It's the one that comes with the portable kit. This is probably the cheapest fly reel in existence. It apparently has a drag built into it. It turns, but I've never found a difference working it. Either way, I always reel in left-handed. That way I can strip line and then reel easier and control tightness with my hand. But you can set a fly reel up to do either way. But see, if you can hear that, even when you're reeling a fish in, it clicks. Whenever a fish is pulling your drag, it clicks different, and see how that line comes out? So, reel it in. I use these reels to teach beginners and just to have somebody learn how to fish who's never fished before. So, use these fly reels if you're a beginner. Now, getting into the fly reel that I use for everything else in life, I use this. And this is probably my favorite fly reel. It's big, it can hold a lot of line. It has a really nice drag gear on it where you can control it easy even when you're fighting a fish. And see, whenever I reel it in, it's quiet. And I like to be that fly fisher who goes out and is in the middle of nowhere all by himself, just listening to nature and being quiet. So whenever you're using that other reel, it's all kick, kind of ruins the moment for me. So I like using this quiet, and the drag is fantastic. I can adjust it from anything to catch a tiger muskie to catching a bluegill. So these reels are great. This right here, this is a Cascade. I love using the Akuma. Akuma is a really good fishing brand. I like using it. Akuma's great. And you're going to remember that in a minute whenever I show you my next reel, which is my daddy reel. This reel I recommend if you're a big pro. This is an Akuma reel. I don't know what brand it is. I guess it's an SLV. But this, see how big that is? I'm going to show you in comparison to the other reels. Look at that. That's a much bigger reel. It can hold a lot more line and can handle a lot bigger fish. It's got, when you're reeling it in, it's got your gear ratio on it to where you can control it. And what I have on here is I have about 500 yards of 100-pound backing on it. This is the fly reel I use to catch tiger muskie and carp and the really big fish that most people are too scared to target with a fly reel. I recommend going out there and doing it. There's no bigger thrill than catching a big fish on a lightweight fly rod. So use these, use big line. I have floating line on all of these reels. And then for my leader on this one, I always use 30-pound and up test. That way I can reel in big fish. But using the rest of these, I always use that Rio, and I actually have some of it to show you here now. This is Rio. This is my favorite kind. This is the Rio Powerflex. This is 5-pound test, but I've caught much bigger fish off of it. I like using the Rio. Rio is the best, and that's what I use for all my finesse fishing. So those are my reels for fly fishing, and now I'm going to get into showing you the different rods I use. So let's get stuff out of the way, and we'll start with the first one. This right here is probably one of my favorite rods. At the New Mexico Fishing and Expo show, I won this rod in a casting competition. And for the line I use in it, I'm using obviously that Berkeley fire line because I use it on all of my rods. Right now I have a still leader hooked up onto it because this is usually the rod I use to tackle muskie. It's pretty flexible. It's a really good rod. It's a Zebco. It's a cheaper rod, but I love it to death. I love it to pieces. It has still leader on it because, like I said, I tackle the muskie. For the reel I use on it, here I have a Shakespeare reel, and it is just your open face. I'm a strong believer in the open face. I don't know how to use a bait caster. I'm learning, so hopefully I'll be able to teach you that one day, but I don't know how to use it. For people who don't use spinner reels a lot, I like this because if you look right here, it has the cast button. It's where you cast, and then whenever you reel, it locks itself down. This is pretty much just your lazy man spin caster rod. I love using it though because I control on it. It has a lot of line on it, and it has the drag reel. It has everything you need for it. So I like using this. This is my basic medium heavyweight rod. I use it for catching bigger fish, tiger muskie. I can catch trout and bluegill on it though. A heavyweight rod will catch anything, but I like using finesse. I don't own any heavyweights. I just like using the medium at most. So this is my rod for just about anything. This is my universal rod. Now moving on to my next rod. This, I don't have a reel on it yet, but this is a bait caster rod. This is probably one of your top dollar. This rod is probably worth more than the computer I'm filming this with. But if you look at it, this is your classic, oh, I can't break it apart. It's a one-piece rod. So, oh, no it's not. But this right here is, I don't know if you can read that. If you can, that says Cabela's Fish Eagle 2. This rod is probably, it's a medium weight. I would use it for trolling or castings for big bass, big catfish, anything. This rod is amazing. Cabela's is always a very good brand, and I love using the Cabela's. My favorite rod of all time, you'll see it here in a minute, is a Cabela's Classic, and this is your Cabela's Fish Eagle. The Fish Eagle is really good for bait casting. I strongly recommend the Fish Eagle if you're going to bait cast. It is pricey. I did say that, so don't take me wrong if that one's pricey, or if you think that one's not pricey, because it is. Now, here's one of my favorite rods. This is my 2-piece 9-foot fly rod, so I'm going to put the tip away. And this one is a 5/6 weight. It's a Scientific Anglers. It's just got your basic cork handle, but I love this thing. This is fantastic. Most people, when they target big fish like muskie or carp or pike, they will use a 9-weight rod. This is a rod I catch muskie on, guys. I use a 5 to 6 weight. Using these lightweight rods, you hook up onto a fish, and this handle that's in your hand, every time I catch one of these fish, I have to peel my fingers off of it because I fight them so long and fight them so hard, and it's so intense, but it is the greatest rush and the greatest fight in the world. This is the one I throw that really big reel I showed you onto, and I love using this rod to catch big fish, even though it's a lightweight rod. Moving on to the next rod. This is my favorite rod of all time. This is an ultralight rod. This is probably one of the most high dollar rods you can afford. It has your basic cork handle, and this is a Cabela's Classic. See that? I don't know if you can. No, it's a little dark, but this is a Cabela's Classic. It is ultra light action. This is as light an action as a fishbowl you can get. This one's 6 foot. I caught a tiger muskie on this. I was trolling with trout for it, and I latched onto a muskie, and it just, I feared for my rod. I figured it would break, but I managed to ease it in by playing it nice and soft. 6-pound Berkeley backing. Always use that Berkeley backing. Always, guys. Strong believer in it. Always have been, always will be. Use that, and you'll do good. It has your drag adjuster on it. Always have a drag adjuster. If you're going to use a lightweight rod to catch big fish, drag. Drag, 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 drag. Can't emphasize that enough. You will not catch fish if you don't have drag. So I use this rod a lot. It's very lightweight, very compact. I can drop shot with it. I can bait fish with it. I can do anything with this rod, and it's just fantastic. A little 2-inch bluegill feels like a 12-inch trout. Imagine how that muskie felt. I was pooping myself because it was that big of a fish on a lightweight rod. Notice how all of my spinner rods, they have a still guiding. I have a strong believer in that still guiding while you're bringing it in. If you're drop shotting, you can feel that weight dragging across anything. You can feel a lot more with these still guidings. So ceramic works alright, but the still is the best one you can get. I love using this Cabela's Classic. I love using the still line for anything. The longer the rod, the better the action, the farther the cast. Long rod with still guides, a good heavy duty reel with drag, and you'll catch fish all day. It's great. That's your best setup I can give you. Now getting into some of the rods that aren't exactly mine. This right here is my sister's rod. She's 11, and this is for, since I'm doing the performance version, this is your Firebird Shakespeare regular caster rod. And it has your little hook in here to hold your fingers on. That's to make a comfortable fishing experience. It's not very long, 5-foot rod. It has your basic, guidings on here, and she catches a lot of fish. She outfishes us a lot, usually bait fishing, but she's drop shot with it just to see what would happen if she's caught fish. And basically it has your double reel, it has your cast, it has some drag on it, not a whole lot, and it's hard to adjust on these rods, so I don't recommend it a whole lot. But for bait fishing or catfishing, these rods, they're fantastic. My sister always loves to use these basic weights, and these weights or these bobbers, they're really good. I like using them. We put a weight at the bottom to hold it upright in the water, that way whenever it plops, it's gone. And it doesn't set the hook itself, it has to teach her how to fish properly. So if you have little ones, I recommend using a big bobber, but putting a lot of weight on it, that way it's deep in the water. That way if they're not watching it and a fish hits it, the bobber doesn't set the hook for you, they still have to do it themselves, teach them to pay attention. I don't know how many fish has been killed because a negligent fisherman was not paying attention, didn't catch, and I hate seeing people waste fish. Wasting fish is a sin. And I follow the fisherman's code and the fishing 10 commandments, so that's all I can say there. So, basic rod, basic for fishing for anything. You can catch just about anything on it. Getting farther into it, this is one of the first rods I ever purchased myself. Doesn't have a reel on it anymore. It had a little tiny Shakespeare reel on it and it got broke, but it has your hook on it, so it's a caster. It's an ultralight. It's almost as light as my Cabela's Classic, but not quite. Has your still guidings on it, and it is just little tiny. It's a one-piece rod. I mean, I can almost show you the whole thing on the computer, so it's a little rod. Very flexible, very strong. It's just like an ugly stick. I love this thing to pieces. I've caught bass, catfish, trout, anything on this rod. Usually my sister uses it now because she thinks it's cute, but it's just as bad as any of the other rods to catch fish. Looks don't matter in a rod, I promise you. You can go out there. I'll fish with a bright pink rod just to promote breast cancer or promote the cure for breast cancer. Don't get me wrong, breast cancer is bad. But any rod will catch anything. It's called a microcast. This one is another Shakespeare, I believe. Shakespeare is obviously a big brand in fishing. I trust them to pieces. Now, getting on to the last rod I have to show you. This is my mom's rod, and she's the one who outfishes us all the time. She caught carp on it. She catches everything on it. This is also an ultralight. I think this is an extreme, and she has a cardinal reel on it. She's right-handed, so she fishes all different. But see the ball bearing on that? I spin it and it just goes. I let go of it, it just keeps going. A reel with a good ball bearing on it will do you great. So use these. It's a quantum rod. It does good. She has that Berkeley Fireline on it. I put Berkeley Fireline on all my family's reels because that's the best you can get. Still guidance. Very long. This is a drop shot reel. If you notice, she did break the tip off at one point. Big fish. So we had to glue on a different tip. But guess what? She still catches fish with it just as much as any of the rest of the boys. Ultralight, so it's really good. I mean, obviously, I don't know if you guys can see it, but see how that rod just rainbows? It just shakes. So whenever you hook up onto a fish with it, or you're reeling it in, you can be reeling it in, and every tip, every jerk, you can feel everything. But if a fish just swims by it, you set the hook because you feel like it hit it. So those are all the rods I have to show you. All of these rods are fantastic. You can catch fish with them anytime you want. I'm going to move all the rods back over, that way I don't get them all tangled up whenever I start showing you some miscellaneous gear. So, but any rod you have, if you fish it right, I have an interesting story to tell you. It's not mine to tell, but in Missouri, I believe it was, a 7-year-old girl caught the state record channel catfish out of a little river with her grandpa off of one of those little tiny Barbie princess rods. Obviously, you can catch fish with it. On another story that's from New Mexico, our state record tiger muskie, a little girl was fishing at a lake we have called Quemado. And we only have 2 lakes that have tiger muskie in it, but Quemado is one of them. And she was fishing, and she was fishing for trout. She had a little worm on, and she caught a trout, and she was rolling in the trout, and she felt something latch onto it. She thought she was hooked on the rocks. She handed it to her dad and said, "Dad, will you roll this in? I'm stuck." So he grabbed a hold of it, went to crank it, and went, "No, I think you have a really big fish." So he gave it back to her, and somehow she caught it. A 9-year-old girl caught the state record tiger muskie. And not 9-year-old, she was younger than that. She was little. They had pictures of her next to the fish, and it was as big as she was. The record's been broke since then, but she caught a state record fish off of a little Scooby-Doo pole. So those little poles catch state records all the time. It doesn't matter what you use. Professional gear is great and all, and it helps the fishing experience, but you can do it with anything. So I've showed you your trot line. I've showed you your flashlight. You've already been into my tackle box. You've seen my fly fishing stuff. So now we're going to get into some of the miscellaneous stuff that you don't need, but I strongly recommend. Always wear a hat. I have different hats to show you just because all hats are the same, but I have a strong selection of hats. I probably have a different hat for every day of a month, but not promoting any sponsors or anything here. This is just what I wear. I have my lucky hat. I wear that a lot for a lot of different occasions. Spider wire hat. It's very loose. I can just pull it off and on. And it's just, I have different hats for everything. But wear a good hat when you fish. You don't want to get a sunburn. And whenever you're fishing, it just covers your eyes, and it's like a football player on the field. It covers that glare off of the water. It helps you cover it so you can see more, and you can see like fish jump in and doing whatever. Now, the last 2 pieces of stuff I have to show you are waders. And when it comes to clothing, we're fishing, wear whatever you're going to do. I'm a strong believer. I always wear the same pair of pants and the same shirt whenever I go fishing, just because I'm superstitious when I fish. I always carry my little brother's fly fishing stuff with me, just because even if I'm not fly fishing, I want him there with me. He's my guardian fisher angel and everything, and I miss him to pieces. But these waders were actually his, and these are your basic pair of waders. So I'm going to stand up so you can see them here. They're just basic. These are Hodgman's, and they have your little pocket on the inside. They're very basic buckles, and if you notice at the bottom, they're just like socks. There's no shoes in them, so you can wear any shoes you want. I have specific wading boots that I have for these shoes, but this is what you use for fishing. And these are basic waders. I've used them in every water, lakes, rivers, it doesn't matter. I just recently got a present and got a big boy pair of waders, and these are Hodgman's again. And whenever you open it, it has your pocket on the inside or on the outside. These are thermal waders, so they're really warm. And if you fish like the San Juan River, it's in the middle of February right now, and it's very cold, but in these I could be hot and sweating and want to take them off, but you got to know better. They have them in certain sizes. This one's probably too tall for me, but I like to go deep in the water, so this one comes up to like my shoulders. Basic buckle straps, they work good. And these ones have the boots built into them. So, and I'm going to show you the tread of the boots, because see that? That's your tread for fishing. You want a good tread whenever you do it. Pretty flexible, pretty good heel, because when you're walking in the water, if you fall into a sudden hole or if it's in fast water, you want to have good grip. Good traction is everything. So, waders are optional, although I strongly recommend them. Always have a good hat. Always carry a camera with you. You never know when you're going to catch something big. Rods don't matter, reels don't matter. So long as you play a fish right, you can catch any fish. So other than that, I don't know what else to tell you guys. I showed you different hooks in the last video. I've showed you how to tie some certain lures. I've showed you just about a whole lot of stuff. I'm going to be posting more videos, don't get me wrong, but those are all your basic principles to fishing. So I'll be showing you different knots. I'll be showing you how to tie different flies. And hopefully I'll become an actual outfitter, and it'll be somebody you all trust to call me and ask me for help and send me emails, and I'll post videos to help you guys out. So if you guys have any questions, any comments, of course you can comment them right here on YouTube, or send me an email and I'll post certain videos. So thanks for watching again. I'm Travis from Riverstone Outfitters, and hope you all have a good time on the water. Thanks for watching.
Lazy yellow moon coming up tonight, shining through the trees. Crickets are singing in a